Hey out there, this is James LoMenzo, and I'm with my buddies Eric and Jeff, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast. Let's go.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers, like our Facebook page, or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back in July to downtown Davenport, Iowa, that is. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
James LoMenzo, Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, we dive a little deeper into his history and a little bit more of the bands that he's played with.
Yeah, and so we discuss his work with John Fogerty and the John Fogerty Band.
And a little more with Megadeth.
A little bit more with Tim Ripper Owens.
Yeah.
And we did touch upon just a bit of Firstborne.
Firstborne, that's his latest project. They got a couple new singles that had come out since the last time we talked to him, so we touch on that.
It never gets old listening to James LoMenzo talk. Agree?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to this interview, man.
All right, good night.
Good night. James, welcome back to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I would like to reintroduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
James, it's great to talk to you again tonight.
What are you doing, Jeff? How you doing, brother?
Awesome.
Hey, fantastic. Wait, we want to thank you so much for returning back to the Nothing Shocking podcast. We had so much fun with you the first time that we felt like we didn't even touch the surface of things that we wanted to talk about, so here we go.
Well, Eric, you know, I've been sitting on my phone ever since. So what has it been, like 5 months now? So I've been waiting for this phone call.
Well, I think it's been since January or whatever it was. So yeah, this is fantastic.
Going by quick.
You know, the funny thing about that was that Sunday afternoon that we interviewed you, we had Sean Drover on immediately after yours. And
oh, no way.
Yeah, Sean was so pumped up that you were on the podcast. Afterwards, after we got done interviewing you, he had texted me, I think the day after. He's like, how was that LoMenzo interview, man? He was like, that guy is salt of the earth.
That's wonderful, man. Well, here's a free giveaway, okay, for a Nothing Shocking podcast T-shirt. What band were Sean Drover and myself in together?
The first listener that gets that right.
I'll cue the calls.
I love Sean. Sean's great, man. I miss him. I haven't spoken with him in a while. I did some recording with his brother Glenn.
Yes.
And Sean was on those tracks. So we actually just played together it probably was just around January. Did some tracks for somebody's record.
Oh, so cool.
So
cool.
We played together semantically.
Oh, very cool. Well, last time you were on as our guest, we felt like I said, we missed so much. You've been working with John Fogerty since 2013. I know when I had texted you, I think maybe in February to schedule for this Part 2 interview, you were kind of unsure if you were going to be going on the road or playing any live shows with John. So can you kind of talk a little bit about the origins of getting together with John Fogerty and how's it all worked out ever since?
Well, the John Fogerty thing is it still blows my mind. I mean, it really does. I mean, it's weird. You know, there's a handful of guys out there, you know, musicians that like a guy like me can go and play for as a bass player, you know.
Absolutely.
And there's that level of like the Bruce Springsteens and that. I think John is at that level. I think he probably lost a lot of years in his career because of Creedence and all that. But, I see him in that same place, So to have that opportunity and to have kept, been able to play alongside of him in his band for all these years, I think it's 7 years now. It's just been not only a treat, but an honor and all. I can't say enough good things. And that music never, ever, ever gets old.
No,
it does not.
I can digress just a little more. And, when I was just a little lad, when I was playing guitar and just learning how to, play guitar and sing and stuff, I would play whatever was on the radio. That was pretty much all we could do back then,
Mm-hmm.
We didn't, have a lot of CDs and, you had to go and buy singles. So I played all those songs. Like, those are the first things I ever sang and played, on acoustic guitar, like Who'll Stop the Rain and Traveling Band and all that. And those were like the first songs I ever got in front of people and sang. So to go, 40, 50 years later and be able to be part of that legacy live and in your face, it's just been wonderful.
Absolutely. And maybe you could kind of touch upon how did the opportunity come to work with John? What were the circumstances that took place?
Well, let's see. I had a jam night in Burbank. I was running my Monster House company. We were doing videos for musical instrument manufacturers. Mm-hmm. And that was just an idea I had because, as a bass player for hire, it's kind of like, you get gigs here and there, and, then you got to fill in the blanks. And so along the way, I thought, this digital video stuff isn't that hard to do because I was like usually the guy on camera talking about stuff. Yeah. Why don't I just get a couple of cameras and do it from the other end? And I know how to edit it and all that stuff and light stuff, and because I've done photography my whole life. Mm. So I start this business, and I'm sitting in Burbank, and a friend of mine calls up, and he goes, I got this blues night. And I was wondering, it's not really pulling people anymore. So I was wondering if you could come in and do a jam night, like any night of the week you want, and do like a rock night and bring some of your big shot friends down. But it appealed to me because I thought, well, I'm not really out there playing that much. Let me do this. And, it was also a good way for me to just play different kinds of music and sing, finally just get up there and be the lead singer again after all those years, So I called up a bunch of people, and at first it was Brian Tichy from Pride and Glory, who I always loved to play with, and he was busy. Was he playing with Billy Idol or Foreigner? I forgot. He was in one of those bands, and he didn't have the time to do it. So I had met a couple of months earlier. I had met Kenny Aronoff at a session up at Frank Zappa's place. Mm-hmm. We were doing music for DMC and Bobby Brown. It was really weird, but I mean, it was the first time I met him, And he just blew me away, not because he's such a great drummer, which he is, but because he showed up to the studio with like so many drums and so much percussion, like nobody asked him, but he was prepared for anything. And that made such an impression on me because that's kind of the way I'd go in with like bags of effects pedals when somebody called me for that first session. Because you just never know, you never know how you can make it better, And so he was that guy, and I just loved playing with him, and his energy is wonderful. Anybody who's ever met him knows that. And so, he became kind of a mentor to me in that, there aren't too many guys who are older than me in this business, but he is a little bit older. But anyways, I would call him up and just chat with him about things. He's always very gracious. And so then I call him up and I say, you know what, I got this. I think it'll probably be Tuesday nights of all things, like middle of the week. Do you want to do a jam night with me, like be like the house band guy with me? And I expected him to fully say, no, I have no time for this. I'm a professional musician, But instead he said, well, that's perfect because I really just do these weekend gigs mostly with John Fogerty. He was playing with John. He's been with John for 20 years now. And so he goes, well, that's perfect. I would love to do that. And I said, oh, by the way, there's not much money. And he goes, I don't care. This would be good for me to play. He was thinking the same way I was thinking, yeah. And so I got him together, and then we got Brent Woods, who's been running around with Sebastian Bach for the past batch of years. Mm-hmm. And we had this 3-piece band, and it just really tore up. So to get to the point, getting to the Fogerty thing, so we did this religiously, every week, and more and more of my old friends from rock and roll heaven had come down, and the late great Frank Vanelli, I remember him showing down one night. I mean, just like I could just go through a litany of everybody you loved. Like they would, if they were in town, they'd hear about the jam, they'd come down, and it became this wonderful little thing. Anyway, after about 2 or 3 months, I was watching. It was probably a Saturday night, and I'm watching The Tonight Show. Friday night, and it was when Jay Leno was still on, and he had on Fogerty, who was doing his new, at the time, the new album that he had, and it wasn't one of the Creedence songs, it was something new, and it's just really weird because the way they had the angle set up on the camera, there was this fantastic bass player, the guy in his band, and I was watching and I was just like enthralled by this, and I was excited to see Kenny too, and of course see John and the whole band. And so come Tuesday, Kenny shows up, and I go, dude, rock star, I saw you on TV on The Tonight Show. How cool is that? And he goes, it's great, man. I said, man, I got to tell you, that bass player, man, I don't see too many guys, but that guy was really ripping it up, And he goes to me, yeah, you know what? He just left the band. He's not in it anymore. And so, like, my little, all of a sudden, a ting, the little bell sound that your phone makes when you get a message. Mine has a big reverb around it in my head. But anyway, that thing went up. And so, I said, dude, I would love to play with you in John's band. And he goes, I already told him about you. I said, great. And he goes, they're looking for somebody like really young, just like get a kid in there. That's what they're looking for these days. And I said, okay, I'm glad you asked for me. That's so cool. And so after another week, I get a call from Kenny, and we weren't playing, and he goes, we just auditioned a couple of guys today, and there was one who played kind of like you, but he wasn't like you. He's like really adamant about that. And so I told John to give you, to just give you a listen. And so sure enough, man, the next day I get a phone call from John's brother, Bob, who runs the thing down there, who is basically manages the band and all. And he goes, I'd like to set you up for an audition. And I thought, whoa, great. Yeah, woo, score. So to make a very long story less boring, I'll just cut to the quick. So I go down to Mates, which is out here in LA where everybody practices. And you just, everybody's down there. Mm-hmm. And they have an audition call with 11 bass players, right? Mm. And so, my slot is like, maybe 12, 1 o'clock. And so I'm sitting there and watching all these guys going in and out, and some of them were the guys who would show up at my jam nights, and they're all, the thing that occurred to me was I'm listening, outside, and it was really, John plays really loud, surprisingly. And so I could hear all the sounds leading out of the rehearsal room from outside, and everybody sounds great. Everybody sounds great. I'm going, this is crazy. How's he going to pick anybody, And so I went in there and, I got in there and I started jamming along with him. And, my thing was like, I knew he was a jammer, I just had that sense about him, like he loves playing guitar, almost more than singing. Mm-hmm. And so I just did what I would always do. Like if I was with Zakk Wylde or one of those guys, I just kind of stepped to him and jammed with him, and like got in it, and he didn't step back or anything. He was very gracious about it all. And he played along with me. We played a bunch of stuff. And, he didn't really let on that he was enjoying me any more than anybody else. But then, we started doing some of the hits like, hey, here comes Down on the Corner. So I broke into that. And I know all this stuff. I mean, anybody, this is a DNA thing for me. I don't even have to learn this stuff, right? And so, the chorus comes up and I see Kenny like shaking his head, like wiggling towards the mic with his eyes getting wide, like, get over there and sing, dude. And so I'll sing, right? So I go over there and start singing the harmonies, and that was it, man. I mean, I went home. They didn't say, hey, you got the gig, kid. You're the best in the world. No, what happened was, it took a couple of days, and then, I got a call, and they said, you know what, we've considered everybody, and John likes you. So we'd like you to come down if you'd like, What was I going to say? No, let me think about this.
Yeah.
So, 7 years later, here we are,
Oh,
so that's, yeah.
Fantastic. Jeff, you got the next question.
And I'll tell you this, guys. There's one thing about playing in this band, and this is the weirdest thing, but I mean, I play this, we play probably, 150 shows, 200 a year. We play a lot, And I still get it home, and I get in the car, and I hear something like Green River or something come on the radio, and my arm reflexively just goes there and cranks up that knob.
Yeah.
You know, I never get tired of those songs, and I play them all the time. I should be sick of them by now.
I mean, how can you? I mean, really, how can you?
No.
No, yeah, he's got a lot of hits. Now, you guys had a live album, 50-year trip, live at the Red Rocks. Can you talk a little bit about that performance? I've never been to a show at the Red Rocks, so talk to us a little bit about what it would be like. That just seems like such a cool venue.
I've played there 3 times. I played there back with White Lion, and Megadeth played there. And man, it's Bible-licious. It's different than any place else that you would play. I mean, it is this kind of built-in rock amphitheater. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you know, adequately named because those rocks are indeed as red as you can imagine. You know, some of us older folk go back and we think of like the U2 video, you know, where they've got the torches and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was like an early introduction. When you're standing there, it looks nothing like that. Okay. That just has to do with having a wide angle lens and, you know, having just the right lighting and all that. The stage seems a little smaller than you would imagine, but it's just wonderful because it's like it's a national park. And like people go there, they mill about all day, and then they set up, and it always rains during the show. It's just, you know, the weather comes in and out of there. And best catering in the world ever of all time, like, you know, and that's like under the rock, under the stage, like there's actually rocks like in the catering area and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's all aside of that, but it's like one of those really nice nights out. And from my perspective, being a guy on stage playing, the only thing that really ruined it was having all those cameras in the way. Because it's always like some guy running in front of you, you know, like they have total access, you know, to get all the good shots and stuff like that. Or some big crane swooping down towards you and stuff like that. But that was a fun tour. We did that for most of the year, and we just ended up filming it there for that last. It wasn't the last show, but it was towards the end of the tour. And John did a tribute to Woodstock because Creedence, most people who are familiar with the Woodstock don't really realize that Creedence was like one of the headliners.
Right.
Yeah.
And but he didn't, you know, they didn't make the film, and I honestly think they just passed on having it part of the film because they didn't really think it was going to be anything, you know. And so you know, but he was like, these are all the songs from that era that we did, and we even did. If you ever get to see that live show, we could do a lot of classic songs from there by Sly and the Family Stone and the name's escaping me, with a little help from my friends, Joe Cocker. There you go.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, Kenny Aronoff also played with. And it was just a wonderful vibe show, and we kind of overdressed up for it, and it finally, after 50 years, I finally got to dress up like a hippie, like I always wanted to when I was a kid. And it was, and so usually, like when I play on stage with John, because everybody has nicely trimmed hair, I still have hair down to my ass, you know, they prefer that I kind of tie it back. And right. So in order to keep looking, you know, like copacetic with the band for all those years, I usually just ponytail back and, you know, kind of, you know, fall in line with the rest of the band's look. But for this, I finally got to dress like a hippie, which I've been waiting for about 50 years since I was a little kid. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to be a hippie, you know? So, you know, I let my long ass hair out and put a bandana around it and, you know, a choker collar and bell bottoms and all that, and made a right fool of myself and had the best time of my life.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
All right, so I totally want to change gears on you here because I want to go back to 2000. Yeah, I want to go back to 2003. Your bass player for David Lee Roth on the Diamond Dave album. This album kind of flew under the radar for many Roth and Van Halen fans. What's the story of the creation of this album, and how come it just didn't hit home with more Van Halen and David Lee Roth fans? What held it back?
Oh, it's got to just be a basic promotion. Like, people weren't aware that we did it. Essentially, you know, we had already done the Sam and Dave tour, I think, at this point, right? And we were going to go ahead and do. I mean, Dave is, you know, the wonderful thing about playing with Roth, with David, is that, you know, his mind is always going in like 20 directions, and it's always creative, you know?
Yeah.
So he was like, at one point, he was musing, like, let's do Van Halen stuff, and we'll commingle it with rap artists. And, we had approached that one day, and that almost turned out to be pretty cool, but it never grew any legs. So the next thing he did, we did like this kind of Fellini-esque film on his property, which is wonderful. And you can get that out there. It's called the David Lee Roth's Backyard Barbecue, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. If you look it up, it's really amusing. I mean, you've got, he hired all these like Playboy bunnies. I mean, literally hired Playboy bunnies, Army Rangers, real ones, Mm-hmm. And he made all these different levels on his property out in Pasadena, and set up, just got a guy with a digital camera who's an actual filmmaker, and just filmed all this verite, like this almost Fellini-esque stuff on his property of us doing songs. I think I was doing upright bass and, like all this acoustic Django Reinhardt music and all. And that was wild. So that was another one of those crazy projects, And then he was like, we ought to do a record. And so he started thinking about it, and he goes, you know what? Records are dead. And in that, he meant that you can't get the kind of promotion at that particular moment. He realized that he couldn't really get the kind of promotion on original music that he wanted. So he thought, well, I want to get a product out, but I just want to do covers that I love. So he started like getting us together and like, hey, listen to this, playing the old Savoy Brown songs, old ZZ Top stuff, like anything he loved, anything that he loved, Mm-hmm. And so we set up in his place there, and went through and practiced up a bunch of that stuff, and finally he goes, let's just record this stuff. So it was actually the record's mostly covers, and I think that's why he really didn't, it didn't get picked up for the most part, because it's really old. I mean, most of it's really old covers, like Stay While the Night Is Young, all this stuff that you'd have to be, you got to be at least, at the time, you'd have to be at least 50 to go, yeah, I love this. This was when I was a kid, that kind of thing. And that was it. So we took over A&M Studios, and he had carte blanche around the place. And again, he did this whole thing where, he had a party one time when we were just about done with it, and did a little bit of video filming there, put up like palm trees everywhere and lighting and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was... trying to remember his name. Like I said before, Joe Cocker was in the studio.
Oh, okay.
And he was walking by, and he's just kind of walking through, because he'd been recording all day, and he was just kind of walking through, and he looks around, and he sees the Playboy bunnies, and he sees like all these people, like they were all there again, the little people that he would hire, all these people. And he turns to his, I guess his assistant, and he goes, I got to start recording like this. I mean, I was actually in that spot where I could hear him say that.
That is so cool.
But anyway, yeah. So we knocked that out, and I think that's why it might have missed the mark, because it wasn't on a major label, and it would have required a mammoth amount of promotion. But there's some great stuff on there.
Yeah.
There's a cool version of 619 by Hendrix.
Yes. And Soul Kitchen by The Doors.
Soul Kitchen by The Doors. I played it for Robbie Krieger, who came down to my jam a couple of nights. And I said, Rob, what do you think of this? And he goes, yeah, it's all right. Where's the guitar solo?
I gotta ask you, as far as like you kind of touched upon Dave's creativity. It seems like, as far as when it comes to a creative moment with David Lee Roth, it's got to change 10 times within a minute. Yeah. As far as collaborating, and working with him, what is it like getting in the studio with David Lee Roth?
Dude, he's wonderful. He was great. I can't say enough great things about him musically, as a person, the whole 9 yards. First of all, okay, being in a band with David Lee Roth, I played with a lot of people, man, but when I got on stage with him, the stage felt bigger. The whole fucking thing felt huge, It's just something about the way he presents himself there. Yeah. All of a sudden you feel like the walls are gone, like it's big, and it you kind of feel your chest coming out a little bit as somebody standing next to him, like, yeah, I got all this space, So there's that, and in the studio with him, I mean, he doesn't sit there like, listening to every note. He could, if you're in his band, it's because he likes the way you play. And so he just, he'd give us the bones of the song and go, and he'd listen to something. And if he thought like he had some kind of idea, he goes, well, let's double that bass part up with the guitar, or let's get a Hammond over that. That was it, And then when he'd sing, man, he blew me away because, we know what David Lee Roth sounds like.
Yes.
But that record we were doing at that point, all of a sudden he comes out with this line. I go, my God, that's Wilson Pickett. Like, that's what he's doing. And he's fully capable of pulling it off,
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're at that point. It was great. I challenged me to say something bad about it.
Fantastic.
I know when I bought my record player a couple months back, that was the first record I brought out of my collection was the Eat 'Em and Smile, and I had.
Oh, what a great record that is!
I know that one still gives me chills when I listen to it. But
start thinking about Eat 'Em and Smile, and you're going, "Oh my God!"
I know.
Yankee Rose, I know where you're at, dude.
So were you playing live with the band too then?
With David Lee Roth?
Yeah.
Band? Oh, yeah, I was hired as a live player right away.
Oh, cool. So what were some of your favorite songs you played with Dave?
Well, first I should say that Ray Luzier of Korn fame these days, he brought me in. His girlfriend used to babysit for my daughter when she was young.
Oh, cool.
And I just come down, I was living up north, and I came down to L.A., and he used to come over and hang out, and he wanted to hear stories about Pride and Glory and stuff. I don't know why, but he did, I thought, but he was kind of young, but he was hungry, man. And he was playing with Roth at the time, but they were playing like at a club level. All these acts went through this weird, scenario through the 90s, And so he had said to me at that point, he goes, listen, if the time ever comes where Dave needs a bass player, you think he'd be interested? And the way he was saying it was like, because I played with some guys, it's like, it kind of sounds like, it might not be the best gig for whatever reasons, But I said, of course, I've done enough crazy shit where, bring me your worst, let's see if I can do it, But it turned out to be completely the opposite, again, it was a wonderful situation. But so my favorite songs to play, man, I mean, Mean Street, right after the big guitar intro, that song is just crazy, dude. I used to like to do some of the boppy songs like Beautiful Girls, which has all those nice little bass turnarounds in between the parts and all that, and kind of swings really good. I loved it. We used to do Living in Paradise, which was great. And everybody in the band could sing, so we could cover a lot of those vocals. California Girls was great. I love the Beach Boys, so to kind of do that transposition that Dave did to that style of it was great. Yeah, I mean, every Van Halen song known to man. Running with the Devil, terrific. Like who doesn't want to get up there and have 20 spotlights on them and just hit one note?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point we were on that Sam and Dave tour. Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth, were co-headlining. So they'd flip-flop, and we do, like one night Dave would be the headliner, one night Sammy would be the headliner. It was a great tour. A lot of people coming out and playing all of the, all the Van Halen songs, the Van Hagar songs, and all that stuff. And, Michael Anthony was there, and I kept egging Dave on. I said, you should have him. I have no ego about this dude if you want to have him up there. And he said this wonderful thing to me that I'm not actually going to repeat here. But it was nice on my part, but I thought it was kind of pandering to what I was saying because I think at the time Michael Anthony was playing with Sammy, so I think it was that. But I thought that would have been great, man, if he would have popped up and done that. And obviously since it looks like they might actually do that someday.
Yeah.
But okay, so on to the next. What else you got?
Yeah,
sure.
Let's kind of switch gears here to 2007. You joined Dave Mustaine and Megadeth for the United Abominations album. Was this your first thrash metal endeavor, working with Megadeth?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, back in the White Line days, we were slumming it. Like we had some songs that kind of aped heavy metal, but we weren't really that. You know, we were kind of like a heavy rock pop band in a way. You know,
absolutely.
So to get chucked into that, the only thing that prepared me for that was a complete love of all kinds of music, and the Hideous Sun Demons, which was a band that I put together with Ray and Toshi Hiketa, who turned out to be a second guitar player in David Lee Roth's band towards the end. And Ray wanted to do this kind of drum band thing. Did we talk about this the last time? I'm not sure.
A little bit. You touched upon it just ever so lightly.
Right. So we had this, and it was basically a jazz rock fusion band, kind of like a Rush or Liquid Tension experiment, like somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And so that was so we had this one song we did called The Mummy, which actually played on a 6-string bass. I'm looking at that bass right now, kind of the kids. And it really, it showcased a lot just because there was a lot of space for me to kind of run up and down the neck and all that stuff. And that was about the heaviest thing that I had recorded. So I get a call. Let me see. I just finished playing with Black Label Society. And, it's kind of, how can I say this delicately? Healing. I was sitting at home healing. Okay. And so there I was in my backyard, and the cell phone rings, and it's a friend of mine who used to at the time work for ESP Guitars as a representative, and he was just a friend of mine because I met him years earlier. He used to represent one of the other manufacturer companies that I was involved with. And he calls up and he goes, J-Lo, you looking for a gig? And I said, not really. Kind of taking a minute here. And he goes, well, I don't think you could turn this down. I said, all right, what do you got? And he goes, well, it's one of the big metal bands. And so, I'm sitting there and I go, well, it's not Metallica because I just got Robert Trujillo. Who is it? He goes, well, I can't tell you. And so I was like, you can't tell me. What am I auditioning for? What am I doing? And he goes, look, just get together your heaviest stuff, fast, heavy stuff, and send it to me, and I'll send it. And I said, well, it must be Megadeth, right? And he goes, I can't tell you. I said, all right, so you want me to get together my heavy stuff, and you're going to send it to Dave Mustaine, right? He goes, stop, just let off. And so so I didn't have very much. I mean, so I gave him a couple of songs I thought were pretty good, and that song, The Mummy. And, I get a call a couple of days, and it was Dave on the phone. And, he's like, dude, I'd love to get together and meet you, bring a bass down, and we'll listen to you. And so I went to go, this was my audition. It was on Sunset Plaza at their manager at the time. Dave had a manager, and I don't remember his name, but he had this little place on little office upstairs. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't, I thought I was going to a rehearsal place. Nobody made this clear, right? And so I brought a 412, Marshall box and big amplifier and one of my buzzard basses, barely any of it fit in the car, all these big things, and a pedal board and all this stuff that I was just using with Black Label. And so, I get all in, I'm getting in the elevator and get all this stuff in there, and then I go in, it's this little tiny office. So I roll the stuff in, and I set up in the corner next to a couch, and that was couch, just enough room to get it around the coffee table, which was taking up 90% of the room. And, in walks Dave with Sean and Glenn Drover. And so, I meet these guys, and hey, how you doing? Dave is very gracious, and so were Sean and Glenn, but they're very quiet. That, I knew they were from Canada, but I met other Canadians and they weren't this quiet. So, I was kind of thrown off balance just a little. I was, all right, what is this? I've never had to do anything like this before. So Dave starts going, okay, so I listened to all your music, and I said, great. And I said, did you like it? And he goes, I listened to all of it. He goes, yeah, I think you're a great bass player. So let's sit and talk. And we talked about a few things. And then he goes, all right, let's play some stuff. And so he didn't even take out a guitar. He just all right, plug your bass in. And so I started showing him what I knew. And if I tell you guys I knew 3 Megadeth songs, just what I'd hear in the clubs, like In My Darkest Hour or Peace Cells, or Sweating Bullets. That's probably it at that point, because I wasn't listening to a lot of that music. I was actually, throughout all that, when that was happening, I was touring all the time. So I just kind of had my collection of CDs, and that was it. I wasn't really reaching out for anything new. And so, so I played, Peace Cells, and Dave, unimpressed, he goes, yeah, it's Peace Cells. And then then I played something else, and he goes, yeah, that's that part. And he goes, well, just play that kind of stuff like I heard on the on your CD. And so I put on a wah-wah pedal just to make it sound more interesting. And I just jammed my ass off and just kind of ran up and down in E and A and all that stuff. And that was it. And he goes, oh, it's great. Okay, good. All right, we're going to start rehearsing in about a couple of weeks. So, we'll send you the set list, which I didn't realize was going to be almost 30 songs. And they're 8 minutes. Some of them are 5 to 8 minutes apiece. So that's a lot of learning, dude. Especially if you're a fan of the music, then you know where it's going.
Right.
But, if you guys, I don't know if you love Bach or Beethoven even, like da 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 da, the fifth. But if somebody brought you the catalog and said, okay, here's 20 of his other songs, please memorize these in 2 weeks because you're going to be on stage playing them, what? So that's where I ended up, and that's how it basically happened. It was just basically a cold call audition, and first gig went great, and the rest of them went great after that. 2 records later. So, United Abominations. Yeah. So after the first gig, we just got right to work on those songs. And, Dave had some demos and pieces, and he just kept sending me stuff. And Drovers, the same thing, And so we just started piecing together how we would play around these ideas. And little by little, we pulled it together.
Oh, so cool. Yeah. So cool. I definitely going to really switch gears on you on this one. Mike Tramp's Capricorn album was released in 1997. We're kind of studying it a little bit, and I just dawned on me that you're the backing vocals on this album, and I guess you didn't play bass on this album. Can you talk?
No, because the reason that happened was I hadn't seen Mike for a while, and so he calls me up, and he was at a studio in Nevada, and he asked me if actually I forgot what came first, the chicken or the egg here, but he needed an album cover, and I was doing graphic design as most us bass players do that. I don't know what that is, but we can do that automatically. It's like the birthright. If you can play up to 4 strings, then you can learn 4 Adobe programs and make things, right? And so I was doing that, a lot. And so I guess he had seen something online, or I don't know. Anyway, so I get this call, and he goes, well, I'm in a studio in Nevada. I'd love you to put together my CD cover. And so I took, let's see what I did. Oh, I just grabbed my camera and went out to meet him at the studio out there. And I'm sorry, I think it was Reno. This might be slipping out of my head a little bit. But anyway, I go down there, and he goes, while you're here, you want to say some background? So that was it, man. I just happened to be in the neighborhood. But if you see that, I don't know if you got the CD, but all those pictures there, I took Mike out for a day, and I just kept shooting.
Oh, cool.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, here I thought, because I obviously didn't study the album like I should. Yeah. And holy crap. James didn't play bass on this album. He's backing vocals on certain tracks on here. I was like, wow.
I do. That's happened to me a couple of times. That happens to me with on Ozzy's records too.
I was just going to say Capricorn's the only Mike Tramp solo album I own at the moment. I'm trying to track down some other ones, but
he's got like 15. Dude,
I know, too many of them. Too many. I know. It's good.
I saw him not last year, but the year before. I think it was August when I was out in Denmark with John Fogerty, and he happened to be there for it's where he's from, but he was living there at the time, and he dropped by to see me. We had the best day. We hadn't seen each other forever, and he on the way back, it's a bus tour, so I got like a bus and a little bunk in there and all that, and he comes back after the show, and he brings me like this shopping bag full of everything he's ever done. And, you know, the thing is, I appreciated it, and I loved having all that stuff, but I didn't have, you know, room to put it anywhere. You know, it's just like, where do I, you know, so I was actually had this stuff in my bunk, like moving my legs over for the rest of the tour. So I have all these, and I have to get to them. I haven't listened to all of them yet. You know,
oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I know that when we kind of first started talking here tonight, before we started recording, we wanted to talk a little bit about Ripper Owens and Play My Game album, and you did record 2 tracks on that album. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think Bob Kulick was. I might be wrong. I think Bob Kulick was producing it, and so they just Niji Entertainment. That's Ronnie James Dio's wife, Wendy. She was managing him at the time. So they just, you know, they called me up and said, would you do a couple of these tracks on the record? And I was thrilled because I love him. He's great. And we did that. One of them was that really cool science fiction alien song.
Oh yeah, the cover. Yeah, the cover up.
Yeah. So I was even more into that. You know, I love that. So yeah. And then I got to years later, I was able to play with him on a whole bunch of stuff. Now we went out to South America together. We were on that Hail thing all over the world together. We did Judas Priest shows, all kinds of things. And he's a really great presence. Like he's a dynamic singer in his own presence. I don't know if you're following what I mean, but like, yes. You know, a lot, like I said, David Lee Roth is big and broad. The stage gets bigger. The stage gets tougher when he's singing. You know what I mean? He exerts himself. It's really good. It's really old school.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I know we had him on the podcast when we first started, like within the first year doing the podcast years ago. And he told the story about when he was a kid, he stalked Mick Brown's hotel room from Dokken and played Ding Dong Ditch on his door. And he went up to, not Ding Dong Ditch, but knocked on the door. And Mick Brown comes to the door and is just in a towel around his waist. Did you ever hear that story? Because he said he tells it all the time. Did he ever tell you that story?
He never told me that story. Yeah. Now I'm pissed.
Now you got to ask him about it. It was hilarious the way he tells the story.
Now I'm pissed. I thought we had a friendship here.
Jeff, take the next question.
All right, I'm going to take you in another direction. We're going to go back to our last interview a little bit. So you were with Firstborne, or you recently played with Firstborne, and I saw that there has been 2 new singles out since the last time we talked, Save Myself and Morning Star. Can you tell us a little bit more about how things are going with Firstborne and the release of the new singles?
Firstborne has got, we've got 3 or 4 more songs ready to go. I think we're just waiting to have 2 of them mixed. Chris was able to get Machine, the fellow who's been doing a lot of Lamb of God stuff and Infant and like a ton of other music to mix these things. And it's taken it to another level. I mean, I'm really enjoying these mixes that he's been doing. And so we've got a bunch of those in the soup right now. And I actually need to figure out, I call up the guys and see what's going on with those because it's been a little bit of a while. I know that Garish has been busy. I think he got married, and his band, The Chronicles, has been pretty busy right now. So that might be holding up a couple of the songs because we really need his vocals on them. And that's where we're at now. We just keep making the music, you know, waiting for waiting for the world to open up for us again.
Yeah.
Amen to that one. Okay, so I have one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the night. Deal?
Okay.
So
we're gonna hang out all night, but okay.
Well, hey, you know, we got Robbie Crane coming on after you, so it's like a bass player's dream tonight. Yeah. So this is
hello to Robbie. I bet he can do graphic design too.
Well, we'll ask him because this is going to tie into graphic design. So yeah, you've touched upon being a graphic artist. I guess, you know, how do you balance the two? Professional musician working in graphic arts. You know, with the world being as it is right now at a standstill in the music entertainment industry, are you kind of focusing in more on the graphic arts and graphic design right now?
Well, my passion is photography, which is where the graphic design stuff came from, because I kind of learned in a backwards fashion. I first picked up working on the computer because of, doing digital darkroom stuff. Mm. And so I kind of learned my way around there, and then I started studying graphic design, proper graphic design, how to actually do it. And it's an art, it takes a lot of regiment. But for this past year and more, my wife's been working on her book, and I've been doing the photos for it. So I've been doing a lot of portraits of these beautiful women that my wife is writing about. And I mean, some of them are like Robert Trujillo's wife, Chloe Trujillo. I mean, they're not all, married to famous people that we know, but they're these, all these wonderful people. And so that's kind of brought me to another level of really getting more on the photography side. But, I haven't had to do a lot of graphic design, which is probably okay. Because to do it right, it takes a lot of time. From the Monster House stuff, when I was doing that, I got really adept at video editing and filming and all that stuff. So I did our Sacred Light video, and so that's kind of the stuff I do. But I mean, right now I've really just been piling on working on my bass playing and music for the most part. Oh. And I've been getting a lot of calls to just do album work for people, which is right out of my house, and I ship them out there. I ship out the tracks after I do them here, and that's been great. So, yeah, I haven't had to really do that. And, the truth of the matter is, it's just like, if you look on YouTube, which I do often, I see all these great young bass players. I'm into bass playing, and, it's inspiring, and it's weirdly intimidating because everybody's so good so fast. Everybody has such a base of knowledge, but there's a lot of talent out there. Same thing for graphic design, same thing for photography, all that stuff. I mean, we're able to actually see what everybody's doing at a glance immediately, whereas before you could be blissfully ignorant. Yeah, sure. And so really kind of stay inspired by that, But now, I'm inspired by the challenge of seeing other people's work and being inspired by something that might set off. So, as a business, no, I haven't been doing a lot of graphic design. I am a upper level retoucher, which I've done for many years for advertising companies. Mm-hmm. And that stuff, I got a call from my old boss a while ago saying, hey, you're on for a while. Let me send you some stuff. But you know what? His stuff dried up too.
Sure.
His industry dried up too. So all of a sudden it wasn't coming. That was fine. But I opened myself up to doing that because I love doing that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic, James.
So that's it. So I'm just going to be a bass player. That's all.
Well, we're going to let you go for the night. And, Jeff and I were talking. It would be so cool to bring you back on again if one day we could just kind of like take an album that you were part of and just break it down song by song. And you can just kind of tell us a story of maybe a White Lion album or anything else that you've been on. And we just would love to hear the story of your helping created a certain album. Would you ever be down for something like that?
Well, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Let's do that.
Oh, fantastic. Right. Well, you know how it works. It takes about 2.5 to 3 weeks before we get this episode all edited, but once we have it all edited out for you, you'll be the first one to get it.
Well, if these were normal times, that would be another 2 bands for me, but we'll see.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed tonight.
Yeah, man, you're fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Eric, and thank you out there for putting up with all this.
Absolutely. All right, take care of yourself. I'll be in touch in about 2.5 weeks. Take care.
All right, be great.
All right, good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day. All with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Everybody grinds the stone and makes their own mistakes. Hide in the headlights, fight the grip of fear. You can make your dreams come true, but you just can't do it here. Hey. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both